A second edition. Welcome back to my mentoring. And today we're going to cover, or in this episode, we're going to cover the concept of, I couldn't really come up with a concise title, but it's about vision, purpose, which then creates energy, creates passion, creates leadership, creates followership. So how do you do it? I get this all the time. They're like, Ed, you're so passionate, or you have so much energy. Where do you get it? I'm like, how can you not get it? I mean, we're alive. Not that some of us may have had health scares or may be sick now. And if you're one of those, I'm truly sorry. And I know what it's like. And it's not a fun place to be. So as I got healthier, I escaped this widowmaker and I escaped cancer a couple times. Is like I made me double down on being happy and double down on just I'm alive and dang it, yeah, you're dang right. I'm gonna maximize life and opportunity and make things happen. So that's really what we're talking about today is sort of how do you get that purpose, that vision, because that drives energy, drives passion. Like I said, all the tangible things that come with it, the leadership, the followership, the execution. But without the purpose and vision, that stuff's hard. Sometimes you can get it and do those things. People are really good like at execution and may not have vision and purpose and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm talking about is really the whole thing, the energy source that comes from that whole macro system, if you will. So that's really what I want to cover. As always, I have a slide. This time, just one slide. I think everyone knows my feeling about slides. So let me share my screen, go to my slide and enlarge it. There we go. All right. So passion, purpose, energy, and I already said all this stuff, but I left out the self-esteem. So a lot of times people struggle with their self-esteem. It's like, how do you have a healthy sense of self? And it all comes down to purpose and stuff. Because if you know you have purpose and you're passionate, you naturally get the self-esteem. If you're kind of like down and out and always in a funk and you're probably, ask yourself, what is my purpose? Why am I here? You probably haven't gotten answers or haven't thought about it. And so it kind of creates that funk. Now, I'm not talking about mental illness, anything like that. Clearly, that's an issue and people should get the appropriate help for that. But I think sometimes it does come down to sort of this, hey, discovery process. And it's hard. That's why a lot of people don't do it and why we're talking about it and why someone poured this into me and I'm pouring it back out on you. I went through some hard times too. I think of a couple times. One time was in basic training. I was 17 years old. I literally graduated from high school, partied like a bad person. And that next morning, I was at the MEPS station in Denver, Colorado at 5 a.m., getting shipped out to Fort Dix, New Jersey. I was 17 years old. And they thought I was in good shape, right? Because I was a varsity athlete, but I didn't never do push-ups and sit-ups. And so I struggled a little bit. And then there was a guy there that looked like me, and he was a smoker. Back then you could smoke. And he was just not a very nice person. And the drill sergeants, there's two of them. There's about 45 of you soldiers. And they got me confused with that guy sometimes. So I was already struggling a little bit because of the physical part of it. And now, and then I was failing on the marksmanship for some reason as well. I really didn't shoot guns growing up. So this is like my first time. So I wasn't doing well on my own. And it was compounded by the fact they thought I was this other guy sometimes who was just, not a good person. So they were really out. They were thinking, hey, I'm sure they have meetings about it. It's like, oh, we need to get, they try to wash out, I don't know, 10, 20%. And I think I was identified on that list, trying to wash them out. And it was really hard. I really struggled. And then I was with people that I'd never been with my entire life. I lived somewhat of a sheltered life, I guess. And even though I was poor, I was not exposed to multiple cultures. And so I was like in basic training with people who came from New York City and big inner city places where at the time they were given they went to the judge if they did something wrong, and their punishment was, yeah, you're either going to jail or you're going to join the army. And of course, they chose to join the army. So I mean, it was a mix of America for sure, which is pretty awesome. But at the same time, it was really hard for me. And I thought I was going to wash out, but I didn't want to wash out. And so I just had this sense of passion and purpose. Like, I'm going to make it here. I want to become a combat medic, and I'm going to make it. And I'll never forget this. The drill sergeant, one of them in particular, Staff Sergeant Moultrie, 1982, Bravo 23. So we're Bravo Company, 2nd Division, 3rd Brigade, and probably a battalion, 2nd Brigade, 3rd Battalion, Bravo Company. And he had it out for me, right? And I remember one time, he's making me do push-ups and mountain climbers and all sorts of nasty things in the heat. And I vowed to myself that I'm going to become an officer, and I'm going to come back and make Staff Sergeant Moultrie do push-ups. And that kept me going. That was sort of like, that was my purpose, was really this whole idea about becoming a combat medic. I knew I was called to healthcare at the time, and I wasn't going to fail. And then this thing, like, I'm going to get you, it's like I got some energy out of it and purpose. And of course, I did graduate barely. And then I went through the process, became an officer. And I always thought about Staff Sergeant Moultrie, how fun it would be to find him, and just say, hey, you probably don't remember me. You probably thought you were going to fail me, but I made it. Now I want you to do push-ups, but in a joking way. I never did that, but I thought about it during my entire process of becoming an officer. But anyways, that was really helpful. Another time was one of the darkest periods of my life. So I've had a couple of dark periods. One was, again, 17 years old. Geez, I was going through the ringer. So I got back, and I went to college. So I got back from basic training. The girl that I thought I was in love with, she was off with some other guy. The car that I bought with the money I'd made, was a piece of junk, Chevy Vega, and aluminum block engine, sort of melted down. And I started drinking a lot and flunking out of college. I had a 1.6 GPA, getting drunk every night. Just, man, in a bad, dark place. And I was like, no, I know. I just had the sense of destiny, a sense of purpose. And even I thought, I didn't have any money. I mean, I don't know. It is as bad can be. It's like, what am I going to do? I'm getting kicked out of college. So where's my home? It's just, it was really tough. But I knew I had purpose. And I was like, no. Someday, just like I thought about Staff Sergeant Moultrie, I'm going to become an officer. And next summer, I'm going to become a combat medic. And I know, for me, my faith's really important. I knew God had a plan for me. And that gave me this sense of purpose and energy and drive. And so I got kicked out of school, but I went back. I was allowed to take 1 or 2 classes and got B's in them. And then I got a job at Domino's Pizza, and so made enough money to live. I had no help. I was all on my own. And then things just started coming together, and having that drive from the vision, like, no, I'm going to make it. I'm going to graduate. I made that thing to Staff Sergeant Moultrie. I made this commitment to become a combat medic. I want to become this officer. I know I'm supposed to do something in healthcare. I got to just get it together. And so this is where I sort of learned stuff, plus all the mentoring that I received. So it's like, man, this does work. I mean, it just drove me to overcome all that garbage that I was going through and pull myself together and get my act together and become something. And people, again, mentors, people invested in me as this kid, this 17, 18-year-old kid, 19-year-old kid, slowly getting my life back together, getting back into school, developing healthy relationships, not drinking. So it started to come together, and if without that, I just don't know what I would do. So I've been like that ever since, and probably worse. So I just love life, and I love career, and I've had dark times in my career too, and we'll talk about that some other episode. But generally speaking, it's like so people ask, well, how do you do all these things? How can you go, and again, I'm giving these examples only to make my points, not to say anything about me because, like I said already, I've had dark periods too. So they'd say, well, why do you climb all the mountains in the world, the highest peaks in the world? Or why do you have to do Ironman? Or why do you have to do, what do you want to write books for? You can't imagine the amount of people that pull you down. That's the funny thing too. Let's just say 70% of the people, they see you with all this energy and stuff. They're like, oh man, I want to be with that guy. I want to be with that person. I want to be like that person. But there's a good portion of people that want to tear you down, whether it's writing a book or doing something grandiose or learning to dance, whatever it might be. So anyways, I just do a lot of things, and so it's answering the question, like, where do you get the energy? It's purpose and passion and vision. It gives you these energy. And so like, I want to do all these things and I want to do more. So I want to keep climbing mountains, and I do. And I want to keep being super athletically competitive, and I am. And so sometimes in my morph, exactly what I'm doing becomes a little bit different, but I'm doing all these things, man. It's just crazy. And I'm not doing it out of balance. And that's another thing. People say, well, you don't spend any time with your kids, or you don't do. No, actually quite the opposite, because I incorporate my family into a lot of the different things that I do. And they get the same sort of passion and purpose for their life. And they do amazing, incredible things as well. So it all works together. So it's not like you're giving something up for doing it, but that's where I get the energy, as I know why I'm created. We talked in episode 1 about brand, and at the end of that, talk a little bit about identity. I know why I'm created. I know I built this resilience. I can go out and stuff can happen if I put the energy into it. And so how do you do it? What if you've got no vision or no purpose or no sense of direction? Okay, so now I'm trying to become practical now. So that covered sort of like a strategic. Now we're getting like super tactical. Do something. I mean, I don't know what people do. I really don't. Like I've taught this a lot, like about having vision. How do you gain vision? How do you create a strategic plan for your life? I've taught that a lot all over the world. And people tell me, well, I don't have any time. And I'm thinking about all the stuff I do, and I do most of it, not all of it, most of it pretty dang good, dang well. I was like, what do you do? Are you really playing video games all the time? Or are you watching TV all the time? Or you just lay in bed? And yeah, that's what people do. I mean, it surprised me. It took me years to figure it out, but that's what a lot of people do. They're just like, I just want to lay here and sit here. I don't mean to make fun of people, but I just can't imagine it. And now it's good to rest. It's important to rest. And I try really hard to get 8 hours of sleep a night, track it on my faithful watch, probably at around 7.5, which is a lot better than when I was younger. When I was younger, I was getting up at 4 to start my workouts, and I was probably getting like 5 hours of sleep. That's not good. But I get rest, and I take vacations. I take a lot of vacation. I travel a lot. So no one can tell me that, it's unbalanced. I think that people are unbalanced the other way, and they get too lazy sometimes. So you do something. And when you do something, you'll find that you get more energy. That's the interesting thing, right? If you don't do anything, you don't have any energy. But if you're doing stuff all the time, you're climbing mountains, you're dancing in front of thousands of people, or just dancing, going on a date with your spouse, whatever it is, going on a hike, a walk, whatever, bike ride, you do something, and you'll find you'll get the energy and you'll get passion. I always tell people that it's like, just pick anything and become passionate. Passionate people are leaders. They're people that draw others to their cause, and they change the world. And so if you find yourself and you want to be a world changer, a big changer, and nothing's happening, you're probably not doing anything. It's like, because you don't have a sense of purpose, energy, passion. So do all that stuff. I'm still trying to remain practical, which this slide is helping me with. Get educated. All right. So let's just say nothing's happening. You can't figure it out. Get educated. Why? Because the more you educate yourself, the more ideas and freshness and challenge comes to your brain and your mind. And I always tell people, like, educate yourself on something different than what you're already doing. So like if you're a healthcare person, like a healthcare tech person, like I was, maybe get educated in something else, because it'll bring in fresh ideas and new perspectives and make you more well-rounded. So do something, gain experiences. So we talk about education, but now gain experiences. I talked before episode 1 about volunteering. Volunteer, do stuff. Go on. So maybe you don't have the energy to do Machu Picchu, but you could probably do the tourist version of Machu Picchu. You know, they've got a train that goes there, and maybe you only have to walk the last mile or something. Do that. Just gain the experience of traveling in a foreign country. Go to Canada or wherever, you know, is a border country to wherever you're watching from, and just get this experience. I love experience. You know what we do? We just started. I'm usually a big planner, so our first most of our vacations like well thought out, well planned in advance, going to different places, hitting as many as possible. You know, lately we know our start point, we know our end point. We rent a car. I mean, we drove all over Europe one time. Just could have done the Eurail, of course, but it's kind of nice having your own car. And we just went from, we were like, oh, wow, we're only at this point, we're only like an hour away from Monaco. Why don't we go to Monaco? Then we're in Monaco. We're like, hey, we're only 30 minutes away from Italy. Why don't we go to Italy? Go to Italy. Hey, we're only, you know, it's so much fun. You can do the same thing in the United States, wherever you are. Just go have experiences instead of sitting around. Drive someplace. Drive. We did that recently too. You know, we live in Dallas, Fort Worth, and my wife went to university in this place called Keene, which is about half hour south of Fort Worth. It's only like an hour and a half drive from where we live. And some of our kids were over at the house. We're like, hey, let's just go to Keene. Let's walk around the university. We've never done that as a family. And it was kind of fun. We snuck into some buildings that were probably accidentally left open, and we just goofed around. So it was great. All right. So here's what you do. If you none of this works, okay, and I realize some people may be stuck. I'm trying to be empathetic and sympathetic. You know, I know some people are stuck, and this doesn't come as natural for you as it did for me. Then what you do is you hitch your wagon. I put hitchhike. Hitch your wagon to someone who you admire that's going someplace. So watch them and learn from them. So what? Let's just make up an example. Let's just say this person's really into building model police cars. Get into building model police cars. Learn about them, learn the scale differences, add the computerization of and the synchronization of the lights and the sound. If it sounds like there's someone I know that does this, I do. But whatever it is, find that person that you admire and hang out with them. Just say, hey, you're really into soccer. And I'm not much of a soccer player, never been much of an athlete, but can I just hang out and like go to your practice? Or, you know, can I watch your games? You know, how do you prepare? How do you train? What teams do you follow? Hitch your wagon to someone with vision. And at the very least, you know, after that period of time, let's just say it's a year or two, you've at least had that experience and seen how this person operates, as opposed to being a year or two down the road and you're still the same person as you were 2 years ago. That's my biggest fear. One of my biggest fears is that I didn't change. And so I'm always like looking to change and to learn. I challenge myself in so many ways and new things, whether it's dancing or different skills, knowledge, just always looking to like, how can I improve and be better? I don't want to be the same person 2 years from now. So that's really it. So that's going to wrap up episode 2 of My Mentor. Is think about vision, passion, purpose, and energy. Figure it out and do something, and it'll all come together. And when it does, man, you'll be a person of action. People are like, whoa, what's up with that person? And people will be gravitate towards you, and life will just get really, really adventurous. So that's it. Thanks for